It's
the No Class Podcast
with your hosts, Eddie
and Matt.
You passed your luck check.
It's the No Class Podcast
with your hosts, Eddie
and Matt.
You passed your luck check.
It's the No Class Podcast.
We can only get him to do that so many times.
That's right. That's right.
But it is nice to be able to break that out on command.
On you. All right.
So if I just walked up on you and said that, would you automatically spit out the line? You'd be like, "Oh, GG."
No. But when we're at the table, microphones in front of us, it's like conditioned. I don't know, conditioning or something. If there was a microphone, maybe. I don't know.
Pavlov's podcast.
That's right. You know it.
Okay, first things first.
Mm-hmm.
So I made the announcement yesterday for the Long Con Spring.
Yes.
And if people want to get any information on the Long Con Spring, they're going to have to listen to the first minute of this podcast or so. So clickbait right here.
Right here, buddy.
So here's what we know about the Long Con Spring.
Yes.
It will be Saturday, April the 28th.
Wow.
At the Dragon's Nest in Kilgore. There will be approximately 30 badges.
Mm-hmm.
They will be approximately $10 a piece.
Mm-hmm.
If that sells out, if we sell out those 30 spots, then we will open up Friday or Sunday and do it again.
Like a Friday evening.
I would say all day Friday for anybody that can get that time off.
Cool. Yeah.
And then if we sell that out,
Mm-hmm.
we'll do the same thing Sunday.
Cool.
So a full 3 days of gaming.
Like a true little mini con. I wonder, what about that upstairs space? Is it all just piles of stuff? And,
Yeah. But in the future, that could be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We could move part of it up there. That's interesting. That's cool. Well, how thoughtful that the Dragon's Nest is willing to open their doors to the Long Con faithful for our little spring fling, if you will.
Well, the thing is, what I was thinking is that the proceeds for the first day will go to the Dragon's Nest.
Absolutely.
And that'll be we supported the friendly local game store.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second day, if we have a second day, those proceeds will go to a charity of our choice.
And I like that. We've always liked to help charities. I love that. So that sounds good.
And then the third day, if we come to it, will be those proceeds go to something ooh la la as a raffle prize for Long Con.
I like that.
Long Con Prime.
/ the barbecue fund.
Right.
Yeah. Which exciting news there. Not only we special guests at North Texas again this year, but they're going to have not one but two potentially barbecue trucks. Exciting.
Yep. So that's your Long Con Spring news. That's what we know.
Yeah, we're excited. Looking forward to it.
So if you were listening just to hear that, because we twisted your arm into it, thanks for listening. Oh, and when will the tickets go on sale?
Yes.
When will badges go on sale?
When indeed.
Could be our next Twitch show. That could be something we do Twitch live.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Watch it sell out.
There you go.
Because, okay, Long Con Spring, you can stop listening now.
All right.
Speaking of the Twitch show,
Yeah.
we kind of need to, I don't know if we've said it on here before, where we're kind of like, do we keep going or we walk away from it?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not that we've got poor ratings or anything.
No. But I think a lot of them are the same people that are listening right now to this podcast.
Well, then they're getting a double. So maybe they enjoy that.
Could be. Or they get to see our ugly mugs. You know?
Exactly. Which there's some changes to our ugly mugs.
That's right. Anyway.
So we may or may not keep doing it, but if we continue doing it, we want to bring the heat, show off, show out. And so that might be the next one we do, like, hey, listen to the show, and sometime during the show we will turn on the badge sales to bring you folks in with more clickbait.
I love it.
But we really want to show them that we're the top rated, number one, most beloved show on there. If you can't be the best, why do it?
Right. Exactly.
And the other thing is we could do it ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Which I've mentioned that a few times, whereas, you know, sometimes there's another show that conveniently pops up right after we said, we want to do this day. You know, it's funny, like the Tuesdays that we can't get on for some reason, nobody else doing a show that night. We put in to do a show, boom, we got bumpers. Someone's before, someone's behind us, and it kind of cuts down on our hour, that little extra bit. And, you know, there's certain things we can't talk about, certain things we can't, you know, or certain subjects or languages verboten, whatever. And it's kind of like, I'd like to where we could just talk about what we want as long as we want, whenever we want. There's something to be said for that.
Yeah, you know? And I would like to change up some things too. So it's nothing against
we
Goodman
love
at all.
Goodman games. You know, y'all know that. We shouldn't have to say that. We love Goodman. It's nothing against them, but it's nice to be able to run maybe an hour and 15, an hour and a half if we wanted to, you know, and be able to talk about a somewhat racier, saltier subject matter, you know. Not that, as y'all know, we're not into like a bunch of, you know, blue language or whatever, or particularly racy topics, but you know, we go blue a little now and again, but you know.
What the hell you say?
Bullshit. Anyway, all right.
Okay, so now what have we got to talk about?
I don't know.
What is the horse that has been beaten to death in the last couple of weeks?
Hey, look, there's an elephant in the room.
Was it dead by now?
Yeah.
Has the elephant been beat to death?
Yeah.
So that's what I don't want to talk about today.
Right.
Everybody has talked about it. It is ubiquitous.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't get away from it.
Pervasive, yeah.
So since you can't get away from it, we've got to give our little 5-minute spiel. We're going to try and keep this brief.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Because I know Bad Mike blew up and went off last night on Talking Crit.
Yeah, which was a really good episode.
That was a great episode.
With
we really
our
enjoyed
good
it.
friend Gary O. So check that out.
Yeah, go check it out.
Check out the highlights. It's a 3-hour show. I was like, boy, when we go to an hour and a half to 2 hours, we're like, is anybody listening?
Yeah. Woof.
But it was good, but it was long.
Good.
I guess you can break it down into digestible chunks.
I'm going to have to get that little snippet from the Chappelle Show, like wrap it up,
B.
Wrap it up. All right, carry on.
And right now, supposedly there's going to be an official response from WotC, and we're watching the clock on that.
Waiting with bated breath.
We'll jump off the podcast and watch it and come back. But here's what we are going to say about it. As it is right now, it is a horrible thing. It is really draconian. It's reaching into other people's. It's the theft. It's the taxation of the RPG world.
And you know how I feel about tax.
Yep.
It's theft.
So you've heard all about it. What we're going to say is the same as NTRPG. They are not going to put any one D&D games on the schedule.
Absolutely.
That's the little protest. Personally, the Long Con will not be supporting it. We go along with that too. We're not going to put any one D&D on our game schedule for what it's worth.
Yeah, and for what it's worth. But it's kind of like there's a lot of outrage and a lot of vitriol or whatever on the internet. But and like some people have said, it's good to let your voice be heard. Email, call, call their call center, email them. But I'm telling you, major corporations that make billions of dollars a year, they don't care about your outrage. The only thing they'll acknowledge and see is when their bottom line plummets. Don't spend one more cent on any Magic the Gathering cards. No, D&D paraphernalia. Don't buy one thing that's got that, ampersand on it, whatever. Nothing. And when they see their sales plummet, they'll come to the table with their eyes wide open and and their ears open and ready to listen to reason. That's just my 2 bits on that.
Okay, so. Well, I'll tell you this story to tell you that story, as Matt would say.
Yeah.
Or as Tater Salad would say. As most of you probably know, Matt is in the process of working on an adventure. So, hey, we're the smallest of publishers over here, and me and John Watson are working on our Horde Crawl. And he messaged me the other day and was like, what do you think? Is this going to affect us? And I'm like, Joe Goodman hasn't told me to worry yet.
Yeah.
When he's worried, I'll get worried. So work will continue. Even though Matt wants to stop working on his for any possible reason, work must continue.
Yeah, I was going to say I had set aside a large swath of time I've taken off from work. I've got the money together for artists. I've been communicating with some artists, and I was really getting excited about the project. And then this crap happened. And I'm like, man, are you kidding me? You know,
I think it would be easy enough for you to make it system agnostic if you had to, though.
Well, yeah, and it's funny you should mention that. Truth be known, I wanted to do a version. I already have a version. It was originally written for DCC. I want to do it in DCC, but then I thought about doing a version for the for some other versions. You know, maybe a Castles and Crusades version, maybe a Black Hat compliant version. You know, whatever. So there already been some thought, you know, on that. But yeah, but it'd be, you know, we're about to see probably a glut of non-D&D role-playing systems, and I'm not mad about that. You know, I'm going, please, people, there's so many good systems other than D&D. It's not this big hardship. Go try them. They're very similar. You're smart people. If you're playing these games, check out these other rule sets. Find the one you like and run with it. Play anything other than, you know, and I mean, or keep playing 5th edition if you like it, but don't spend money with WotC. Don't feed the beast. Play the game. Don't buy any more of their paraphernalia.
Yeah, and I don't think this OGL is actually going to come out as it stands right now. I think this outcry is going to make them realize. So I don't see this actually happening. I think this is one of those things that we'll be able to swat down.
And I hope you're right. I hope you're right. But again, this comes down to this. Okay, I want you to think about this. People go, this doesn't make any sense. How can it be? But shareholders don't care about the integrity of D&D. They don't even know about D&D. The shareholders at Hasbro, these shareholders are multi-millionaire, whatever, people that don't play D&D, don't give a crap. And the fact is, they don't see the big picture. All they want to hear is, what are you going to do to make my shares go up, to be more valuable? You know what I mean? That's all they care about. And it's like, you go, well, they're cutting off the nose by their own face. Well, perfect example. We had our con at a previous hotel for 2-3 years. We brought them money. We had a good relationship. They made money. We had a great venue at a reasonable price, blah, blah, blah. They sold burgers and food and you know, drinks or whatever. Everyone's happy. This new guard comes in, and they basically set up a deal, kind of this OGL. People are like, nobody with a brain's going to sign that, right? Same deal. They put a contract in front of us. We're just going to quadruple your price. And the idea was either it was a win-win for them. Because they wanted us gone, which was obvious. So it's like, well, either you're going to get gone, good, or if you're dumb enough to pay quadruple, all right, we'll have you back at quadruple, suckers. You know, so yeah, I mean, same deal here. This OGL, no one's going to sign it. And if they do, great, because it gives away all your rights, all your privileges, 1/4 of your profits or whatever. Or you don't sign it, and then they're going to have their cadre of lawyers ready to come after you. I think this is along those same lines. That's just my thought on that.
Well, speaking of that, brings me to this point, that isn't it a good thing that we don't have our cons wagon hitched to WotC, and like if we were a Adventures League con, if that was our big draw, was doing epics and all that kind of stuff, we would be quaking in fear now.
Well, yeah, Eddie, what he's referring to is back in the day, I helped Tad Zavell and Bobby Howe, God rest Bobby's soul, run a con called BroCon in Shreveport Bossier. And man, we had, like, out of the box, year one, hundreds and hundreds of people. You know, I mean, the kind of numbers that we're slowly, you know, working towards, bull. Like, I think the last year we had something like 400 attendees. So yeah, but you're like, that sounds like a really great con, really prosperous. What happened? 3.5 D&D went away, and the Living Greyhawk League went away. And that was it. It killed that con. DOA. I mean, that was it, because we were tied too much to that concept. But you know.
So here's another one for you that our good friend Jonathan Thompson put this up on the Facebook. Is if we don't have D&D 1 or 1 D&D, so anyway, if we don't have it at our con, is that going to turn off the future generations? And I don't think so. I think there is a good chance that this 6th generation is going to be another popcorn fart like 4E was. I think this is going to be another down edition.
Yeah. And that's where I was going to talk about some of this stuff as part of our main topic. So
don't go too far right now. But
exactly. So I'm just going to, but we're definitely touching on it.
I don't think we're going to alienate anybody by not having any 6th edition, because it's not even here yet.
Yeah. And then this is what Eddie, and I props to Eddie, is down the line, what really incensed him more than anything was for me, and that's what people try to go, well, you don't like 5th edition. No, 5th edition is a wonderful role-playing system. It's WotC that's kind of like, I didn't leave the so-and-so party left me.
Hasbro.
I didn't leave D&D. D&D left me. And that's where WotC, for me, did some stuff in the last year or two that kind of alienated me. And now Hasbro's done stuff that's alienated all of us, whatever. But that's where it's not a dig on the system. I like 5th edition. It's not a bad system. I still think it's a little overcomplicated, but it is a decent system. But it's just the fact is and I've been this way for a year and a half now. I don't want to do anything that would encourage anybody to go out and buy those books. But then the other side of that is, what about the game stores?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want the friendly local game stores to be able to make their money off of 5th edition.
Yeah.
But
and if it's going away, then really why are we pushing it again if it's going away?
But I think game stores are kind of in that awkward position of you have to have D&D and you have to have Magic. And you can't have one without the other.
Yeah, I think I may have mentioned this on here already, but if I hadn't, I was at what's the place in Shreveport? Gamers X or whatever.
XP.
Gamers XP. And I'm talking with this young man behind the counter. And like I'd said, when we were talking, he was talking about Magic, man, I'm a Magic player from years back, but I feel so alienated and I'm so angry with them and the way they're treating the players and what they're doing. I said, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? Kind of. And then I said, have you seen what they're doing with, 1D&D and the virtual tabletop and how that's going to, and I explained to him, in case he hadn't really put 2 and 2 together, stuff that we were talking about months ago that's coming to fruition. We've been proven absolutely right on everything we said. When I was talking to him, and I said, 99.9% of the stuff on your shelf over here is all D&D stuff. Mm-hmm. I said, it's basically like WotC's handing you a knife to cut your throat with, and you're cutting it, for them. It's like you need to encourage. And I get it, D&D is your big seller, but one reason it is your big seller, it's the one you're pushing. It's the one y'all have y'all's Monday night campaign based around. It's the one that's on, there's very few books other than D&D on your shelf. Have some other books. Encourage people to play those. Encourage people to run those. Do some demo games or whatever. I'd mentioned that I was a DCC road crew guy, and I'd love to come do a road crew demo for him, so anyway.
Well, I don't see 1D&D or 6E being our target audience. Mm-hmm. And really, that WotC Hasbro is going out of their way to kill game stores and kind of kill conventions with this.
Sure.
Because this is one that you're supposed to play online.
They want everything to be virtual. So there may be virtual conventions, but, in case you haven't picked up on it, me and Eddie aren't really big on the whole virtual convention thing.
Yeah, and we're not an old school con like NTRPG, but still, when you have our buddies that are small publishers and we being the smallest of publishers, they fucking up.
Yeah, well, and I've seen people online try to, there's the real diehard sycophants that are like, well, what's the big deal? Capitalism's great. Now, I believe in capitalism too, but it's like they're a company and what's wrong with them doing things to maximize their profits and da-da-da-da. But I'm like, they already control a lion's share of the market. The majority of the money being spent on role-playing games, they're getting it. And by eliminating all these few competitors that they can with this OGL debacle, whatever, is really just a drop in the bucket. You know what I mean? It's like, is it worth? To them, it's not going to make much of a difference. I feel like financially for them. But on the other hand, how hard will the impact be on these people? When people are blasé about, well, what's the big deal? When you see someone like Frog God Games or Cobalt Press, or if they don't pivot quickly, they're going to have to fire people. And if they don't pivot well, the company might fold. And you're talking about 50, 60, 70 people are out of a job. You've affected their livelihood. So when you go, what's the big deal? Well, there's the big deal, and these are good people. We know a lot of these people that work for these companies. They're good people. They're nice people. And it's a shame to see them lose their livelihood because of corporate greed. In this case, it's not just, capitalism's great. This is greed. And it's really kind of silly. Like I said, they already have the lion's share of the money that's going into the market goes to them anyway. I mean, how much more their profits go up by putting Cobalt Press and Frog God Games out of business? How much their ledger page is going to shift how much? I don't know. But on the other hand, the impact is momentous to those companies anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so like we said, we don't want to beat this horse to death. It's already pretty dead and stinking. The flies are all around it.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, this could all be a done deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yes, rage against it, but it could instantly go away. So we will see.
Vote with your wallet.
Any last thoughts before we run away from this topic for a while?
Not off the top of my head.
All right. And I'll say it's when it, like I said, talking about like the corporate greed. It's one of those things when your little hobby gets so big, then, you know, it's like the band that you loved as a garage band, but then they sell out. That's what this is. It's just gotten too big and too far away from the people that love it.
And
last thought.
Okay, last thought. One real quick. Again, looking out for the people that we care about, though. You look at like a small companies like Greg Gillespie and Cobalt and some of these ones or whatever. If this does come true, that the OGL comes out, you need to quickly as you can buy. If there's that thing you've been thinking about buying, but you know money's a little tight or you haven't got around to it, go buy it ASAP, because that ought to help them. And I mean, I'm talking about buy it. If there's a way to buy it directly from them, like, because if you go buy it from some reseller, well, you're not really helping Greg Gillespie or Cobalt Preston. But if you can buy it directly from them, whether it's the PDF form, because if this OGL comes out and it's legit, they might not be able to sell that very soon. They won't be able to sell it. And for two is to help them weather this time when they're pivoting. That extra cash influx might help them. So I would encourage you to help these, you know, small indie companies, these third-party companies, help them out. Throw them a buck if you can in some way. Anyway, that's my final thought on that.
All right. So now we go into our hobbies, our
Pop culture.
pop cultures.
Yeah.
Pop into pop culture.
Pop culture.
We're keeping an eye on this video over here to see if it ever comes up to a response. And I'm starting to think, nah, it's not going to happen. But we will see. We will keep you updated with all the news that's fit to speak.
Yeah.
Okay. Books, comic books.
No.
All right. Folks who have listened to this podcast for a bit will have heard me talk about one of my favorite comic book writers, Al Ewing.
Yeah.
He does Immortal Hulk amongst a bunch of other things.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no idea how I get down these rabbit holes, but I decided to check out the new X-Men, X-Men Red, and Venom. The common denominator, they're all being written by Al Ewing right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I read them and then came back and was like, man, these are pretty good. Who wrote these? Oh, aha, I see.
Go figure, yeah.
But it's a little weird getting back into X-Men stuff now because, yes, it is a big soap opera.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And back in the day when you knew every character and now you come back and you're like, who the hell are these people? Like a female Wolverine. And before you roll your eyes out of your head, it's actually pretty good.
Well, good. We already knew that they had worked up a female Wolverine because the character is insanely popular. So, you know.
I think Wolverine is dead right now, though, probably because the old man Logan and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you have to go away for a little bit so we can miss the character, and then they can go, the return, the shocking return.
And you'll buy up, yeah. But no, I mean, even on Old Man Logan, they had they harvested his DNA to make Project 23 or whatever she's supposed to be.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's basically how that is she's this science experiment that one of the scientists impregnated herself with some of this genetic material. So she's not a clone.
Yeah.
And Wolverine considers her daughter.
Oh, wow.
After all this. So it's actually pretty cool.
Okay.
She's got a good backstory and everything. I will give that the stamp of approval.
Okay.
The X-Men Red, though.
Why Red?
They've settled Mars.
Oh.
So they've had their own little Genosha Island for so long. Mm-hmm. And now they've settled Mars. They're pretty much like, well, maybe we won't get along with humanity. We're trying, but if that doesn't work, we'll get our own planet. Mm-hmm. So that's really cool. And they've brought back like some ancient life that was on Mars before. So they're having to deal with that too, like their customs. So
interesting.
It's both of those are really good books. And then Venom.
Which, are you a big Venom fan as a general?
Yeah, I was back in the day.
Okay.
But who wasn't, right? Never? Well, you weren't into the Marvel comics at that time.
At that time, I'd kind of stepped away from comics when Venom became a big thing.
But I was a big Spider-Man fan, so I was in there all along.
As a little kid, I loved Spider-Man. If you didn't like Spider-Man when you were a little kid, like, there's something wrong with you. Yeah.
For some reason, I was drawn to you as smartass, like Spider-Man. who always had a comeback for everything.
Something cute to say. Always.
Always, no matter how tired of it you were.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm really a fan of Spider-Man, and my wife's
You
not.
identified.
My wife's like, I've had enough.
Yeah.
She's like, how about Batman? He just sits quietly in the corner.
Brooding. You know?
Put on this cape, go in the corner and shut up.
Go brood, you know.
But the new Venom, it's all, because I mean, it's like, I remember when these characters were new, and now it's like they've got 20 years of history behind them.
Like, isn't Venom like an anti-hero or something now?
Yeah,
or?
But he's also a god.
Oh my.
So all those symbiotes,
The
which was what the
symbiotes,
suit was, yeah. So
because Carnage is one.
Apparently there was a god over that,
Oh,
and he has risen up and taken his place, and he's moving through time now, and his son is currently not bonded to the suit, the current suit, but he's been using it a lot.
Wow.
And it's kind of like, what's going on? And I don't want to give the spoilers, but yeah, he's moving through his own life in a way.
Interesting. Well, that sounds very interesting.
Al Ewing has a way of making that kind of bizarre stuff work out, which again, like if you haven't broke down and read the Immortal Hulk yet,
that you praise,
get on it.
Praise. Yeah.
All right, how about some TV?
Well, let's see. Heather and I finished watching Harmon Quest, and resounding, just, you know,
That's good stuff.
she was like, tell me there's going to be a 4th season. I'm like, more than likely not, which is really a shame because it's just so much fun. But anyway, like, I know there are people out there that love Critical Role. Is that right? Critical Role. And to not take anything away from that, Critical Role is great. I mean,
You can take something away
those
from
people are voice actors. Matt Mercer's supposed to really, you know, put all this work into this campaign he's running. I mean, they've made a lot of money, and they brought a lot of people to gaming. I thank them for that. All that being said, I could probably set Heather in front of Critical Role, and she'd be like, after 5 minutes, go, let's turn this off. But on the other hand, I queued up some Harmon Quest, and she's like, this is hilarious. And they're really inept. She's like, I feel a lot better. And I went, oh, yeah. I said, when you think you guys don't know what you're doing and you're inept, these people are Hollywood paid, you know, writers and actors and comedians, and they're incredibly inept. It's just hilarious. They just do the bumbling, stupidest shit. But it's great. It's funny. It's very entertaining. The animated part really kind of makes it pop. Spencer Crittenden runs a neat campaign, and so I can't praise Harmon Quest enough. You can watch it on BRV or Crunchyroll anyway. And
Do you have to have subscriptions for those?
You do, but if you're sly, you can get like a 1 week
trial?
or 1 month trial, and you can easily power through those and then cancel it if you want to be. But I mean, by all means, I think 1 month is only like $9.99 or something.
I don't think I've seen all of them.
And
because they've always been locked on some other bizarre service here or there.
Yeah. They started on CISO, which was this freebie channel, and then CISO went away, sadly. And I thought, what'll happen? Well, then VRV picked up season 2, which had already been produced. It just hadn't settled anywhere. So they showed the 2nd season there, and then luckily VRV signed off on a 3rd season. But that was back in 2019.
Yeah, I was going to say, have they done episodes since he's got divorced?
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, yeah. Because if you'll look,
is she on the first 2 or just the first season?
No, she's on all 3. Aaron McGathy. And he at one point addresses when he always leaned like, and to my right, lovely. It's like my former spouse or whatever. But they kept it affable, amicable, whatever. But it's funny. If you'll watch on that Harmon Quest, or if you'll watch Rick and Morty, at the end of the shows, they talk like Starburns Industries, which is still Harmon's thing, and it's a good show. And then you'll see Harmonious Claptrap, and it's a little claymation kind of guy. Originally, it was a guy with some gal in bed with him or something. That was Aaron McGathy. Then eventually, you see a guy laying on a couch with booze bottles around him and dogs and stuff like pets. That was him when he was alone. So anyway, you see that on Harmon Quest, that progression as well. So I mean. And I think when there are later claymations where it's like him in bed with 2 women or something like that, I don't know. But anyway, no. Him and Aaron McGathy seem to be amicable, So
Okay, so I like that show as well, what I've seen of it. But let me ask you this one. Would you want to play in that campaign?
No, that would drive me nuts, probably.
Yeah.
And I'll say that, but it's, yeah. I can be honest in that regard. Sure. No, it's like I would, because and what interesting is it's only 25 minutes long.
Which is nice.
But I read somewhere that like the actual episodes, they might film like an hour and a half worth
And
of
trim it
material,
down.
and they trim it down.
That's what we should do. Just the jokes.
Probably, yeah, just the shtick or whatever.
Welcome to the 3-hour episode,
Yeah.
guys.
But other than as far as shows go, yeah, that's
Okay, here's what I watched on Overlord Amazon. Kids in the Hall.
Oh, was it the new one or the old one?
The new one, the 2020 version or whatever it
Yeah,
is.
I've been meaning to watch it, and because I loved him back in the day.
Yeah, so
And?
if you liked Kids in the Hall, I will recommend this to you.
Cool.
There was another one that's Kids in the Hall Death Checks In or something like that. So I'll have to figure out what that one's about
Wow.
and see if that's something newer or older or what. But this one is the skit show, and yeah, really funny. A lot of the old characters return.
Oh, good. They have Mr. Cabbage Head, or whatever.
I'm squishing your head. He comes back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There was one that, for some reason, sitting at the table with Matt makes me think of this. The guy is, he's not drunk. He's super drunk with the powers of, So he's a superhero, but he has to get drunk to do it. So
Oh.
that one was funny to me. That wasn't the best one. Oh, the best one might be is there's one where they're in the post-apocalypse and Dave Foley is a DJ. That one's pretty funny.
That is kind of funny.
Okay, how about some movies? Movies.
Oh, gosh. So, poor Heather, she had mentioned that she had never seen The Lord of the Rings. So I've got her watching.
Well, there goes 12 hours of your life.
Exactly. Yeah, don't say that.
Oh,
She'll
now
hear
wait.
this. Yeah.
Are you going to watch Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit?
We already watched the cartoon version of The Hobbit because I figured, screw that. You should really have The Hobbit first, because there's like stuff where she'd be like, I'd be lost if it wasn't for the fact we already watched The Hobbit. But instead of making her watch what should have been one movie stretched into 3 movies, nope, we watched the hour and 20-minute, great Hobbit cartoon.
That was a smart play.
And
And actually, the animated Lord of the Rings is worth watching.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though
Yeah.
it ends at that cliffhanger.
Yeah, where there's a whip, there's a way. I mean, that's a classic. But yeah, no. So we watched the Hobbit cartoon, and then now we started on I've got the extended Ooh La La edition. So we're watching that.
The extended Ooh La La
Yeah,
editions.
so yeah, we've spent 2 evenings, and we're probably about 2/3 of the way through it.
Through the first movie.
Yeah. Because I'm trying to think what part. Oh yeah, they're just fixing to leave Rivendell. Yeah. So yeah, he's just like, I'll take the ring, or whatever.
Well, if you survive this, Heather.
Yeah.
And I
Well-
think out of the two of us, I'm the Lord of the Rings fan.
Yeah.
And I'm even like, you're watching the Super Deluxe extended version
Yeah.
with somebody for the first time?
But I figure that's the thing is, better than to watch it and then come back and go, oh, there was an extended super deluxe version, well, it's like.
Whereas I'd be like, here it is. If you just love it so much, you want to watch the long version, we'll watch the long version sometime.
Yeah, different state of mind, but yeah, but anyway,
Let us know, Heather.
We're watching it, and yeah, it would be fun to get her honest opinion on it, whatever. But she's come back and watched it. But it was like at one point I was like, it's getting kind of. She's like, yeah, I better go to bed. And I'm like, is that really we need to go to bed, or is it enough of this crap? Because but I haven't watched it in over a decade myself.
Oh, yeah, it's been forever just because it's so long.
Uh-huh.
My big memory for The Hobbit, the last one, since that's, I guess, the most recent movie, is me and my wife falling asleep to it and waking up at different points on our flight to Japan because we just put on that movie on the the little in-flight seat. You sleep for a couple hours and you'd be like, okay, here we are, still in, because that had to be like 3 hours.
It was just ridiculous. That should have been and could have been like maybe make it a somewhat long, maybe a 2-hour single movie, and that you could have absolutely done justice to it. And what's sad is originally they were going to have Del Toro do it. He has such his visual style and he's so amazing. It's really heartbreaking that they didn't use him for that. But anyway, that's one of the movies we've watched.
Okay. So I don't know if this one got past you completely. A Brad Pitt movie called Bullet Train.
I saw trailers for it or whatever.
So what did you think off the trailers?
It's later in Brad Pitt's career, and he'll kind of take anything, I guess.
I really like that movie.
Well, and that I'm glad to hear that. That's good.
It's it wants to be Tarantino-esque. It wants to be a Tarantino movie. I thought it was really good.
Well, good.
So there you go. For those of you, because really it did kind of go under the radar, I think.
It didn't. I don't think it performed that well.
So he is kind of like a criminal courier. Get on this bullet train, get this suitcase, get off. But then he becomes embroiled with all the other things that are going on with that suitcase.
Yeah.
So really good. I don't think it's given anything away to say that there are a lot of assassins on the train.
Oh yeah, that want the chest. Or
of
whatever.
course.
And he whips their ass. Of course.
But
yeah,
it's funny.
That's good.
It's a pretty funny movie. It's not, like I'm the serious Jason Bourne badass. Probably because he is getting a little bit older.
Yeah.
So anyway,
it was good. Well, that's like when I watched Free Guy. At first, I was like, Free Guy, but the kids were like, you're gonna love it. And then I actually watched it. And was like, I did enjoy that. So.
And I'll say, I was flipping through Hulu the other day or whatever, and it's like movies that you would enjoy, and The Duel was on there. And I was like, I could just watch The Duel again right now.
Yeah,
that one. There's
blew my
another one
mind.
for you.
Yeah.
Another like.
I kind of was like, what? Old Goofball and Goofball McGee, but
yeah, not a fan of the actors, but that movie makes you a believer.
Right. Well, that's like originally back in the day, I was like, ugh, Brad Pitt, and then I watched Fight Club, and I was like, all right, I like Brad Pitt, begrudgingly, because he was great in Fight Club. And of course, I really like Edward Norton, but anyway.
Yeah. American History X.
Mm-hmm. And he was in Kingdom of Heaven as the leper.
I liked his Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, I did. And I was thinking about that too. It's a shame that they say he was kind of hard to work with on that. I would much rather have had him than old
Ruffalo.
Yeah. So what a shame. He missed out on a chance to make a whole lot of money if he had just, kind of kept his mouth shut, it sounds like.
All right. How about some video games?
Video games, I really wanted to, but it's one of those things
Heather.
where, there's not enough hours in the day, or I feel guilty because I'd kind of made, and I've stuck to it to a certain degree, that it's like until I have my project done, I'm kind of not messing with the video games because I can go down that hole and get distracted. So, no.
I am somewhat in that boat myself because I've got the new God of War sitting here.
Oh, and my coworker, the kid at work that loves video games, that's all he's been talking about is that damn game.
So I don't want to go too far into a video game hole where it's like if it was I'm going to start another playthrough of Elden Ring, see you in a month.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go too far down it because I have things to do. I have responsibilities.
Because the only thing, and hopefully you can appreciate it, the only game I went against my pact over was Elden Ring is because you were like, come on, man, me and Gary are playing. I'm like, all right, and I bought it like that night where I would rather have had the disc or something. But anyway, yeah. And of course I went down that hole hard,
So I've talked about it before, the kitty cat game Stray.
Yeah.
I think it was like 6 to 8 hours,
like you were
something pretty short, constantly meowing. So I thought that game was going to be pretty good. It's got a lot of good reviews, but in practice, I didn't really like it that much. I had to force myself to finish it. And like I said, it was 6 to 8 hours.
And you're a completionist. It wasn't that long a game, 6 to 8 hours. Wow.
And still it had worn out its welcome.
Wow.
Because it's fun being a kitty cat, but then there's some stuff that breaks your immersion. Like, how is a cat going to know? Go over here and punch these 3 buttons. And even, the parts where they're like, because you've got a little robot guide helping you. It's like, you're asking a lot out of a cat's intelligence for this to be believable. And then it just, so I would let that go. I can have that with suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
But it got boring. It's like, okay, here's this part where you have to run from all the monsters. And okay, we're going to give you a weapon. Eventually you work your way up to getting a weapon. It's kind of like a black light or something where it's like they can't handle the UV rays. That'll destroy them. Okay. So after you do all these chores to finally unlock that weapon, you get it for about one level, about 10 minutes or something.
Holy crap.
And I was like, you kidding me? All this for something that's not even really going to be part of the game. And then the next part of the game just suddenly goes into a stealth mechanic where that's always one of my least favorite levels of the game.
Yeah. That's why you didn't like The Last of Us, because it was all about sneaking. You're not really supposed to ever stand up and fight. It's the best bet most times with these encounters, just try to sneak past them. Yeah. Now you're not a fan.
And I wasn't a fan of how they did it in this either, because it's a lot of like, oh, you didn't know there was a guy standing back there. So, where you got to do it by trial and error. Yeah. You're not like, oh, I did it perfectly and got through on the first time. It's like, tee-hee, there's a guy hiding behind you. You didn't see that. So start all over again. And for that level, It start back at the level. It's not like, oh, okay, I got through this one
that
zone and
checkpoint
that
or-
zone, and it's the whole level. And I'm like,
Ugh. Yeah, that's never fun.
this is really padding it out.
Yeah.
So
There's basically like, how can we make the game run longer?
yeah. And I wanted this to be something on the simpler side that I could like recommend to my mother-in-law or something who's not really a video gamer and go like,
loves kitty cats.
yeah, like you get to be a little kitty cat. It'll be so much fun. And it has pretty much like auto jump. So you don't have to worry about that. Like, oh, what if I don't make the jumps?
Yeah.
So it's like you made those concessions here to make the game really easy. But then you made it where there's like jump scares and stuff where it's like, okay, that's kind of taking me out. I want this to be a more cutesy game and go this path and you're going that path. And then you make it difficult in spots where I think that's the wrong kind of difficulty for the maybe casual fan that would be enjoying this. So it was what it was. And once again, who I'm not endorsing because they haven't paid me what they should, I'm glad it's a rental.
Yeah.
Because that would have been one that I'd probably rushed out and spent my money on and then been like, yeah. Okay.
So here, not to go against our paradigm or whatever, but we don't generally
you do
talk about board games.
We do if.
Yeah.
So do you have a board game you want to talk about?
Well, I know
or do you
that-
just want to talk about my board games?
Well, I don't know. You've got some new board games.
I've
that
got board games all over the place. We're drowning in them right now.
I'm looking around the table, and yeah, you're not kidding. There's a ton of them. So there's one that I think, I don't know, your mileage may vary, but the missus is pretty crazy about, you told me.
Oh, okay. So here we go. If I haven't said it, our good buddy Kirby loaned me Ticket to Ride and the Nordic Countries Ticket to Ride. And that game has been around for a while, but I've never played it. It's one that I've wanted to play forever.
Yeah, because I've heard really good things about it.
It's great. I love it. So there's your recommendation there, and another thanks to Kirby. So then I do game demos, and some of the games I've got in are Ragnaroks, which is pretty fun, super simple, but has the more complex strategies that you can get into. And then the one that my wife loves so much, she likes Ragnaroks, but the one that she loves so much is Disney's Sorcerer's Arena, which I think that you would enjoy it too.
Really interesting.
It's Battle Royale, King of the Hill sort of thing, where you control these points and play your little cards to use your different
'Cause
powers.
I like strategy games.
Yeah, so it's got strategy to it, and there are different strategies.
Different characters have their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, like Gaston is in it, and he's a brawler.
Yeah.
And what is it?
Well,
Sully.
no one fights like Gaston.
Exactly. And Sully's in it from Monsters Inc.
Oh, yeah.
He's a brawler. So if you just want to have like, my team is composed of people that'll go up and knock the poop out of you. There's the strategy.
Yeah.
Or I've got the expansion kit in for it too, which I think this one is Thrills and Chills. And it's got the Horned King in it from Black Cauldron.
Wow, cool.
You a fan of the Black Cauldron?
Oh, that's a classic. Yeah.
Well, it was yeah. Are you a fan of it, or? And then I'm sure some of the one or two younger people that listen to this maybe are like, "What?"
Huh? If you can find that, that is and it really doesn't get its due, but that's one that for people that know it and like it, they love it. You know, I mean, it's
Yeah. So this one you're playing on the hex board, and the Horned King can summon up skeletons from the cauldron. You have the Cauldron Born on there. So you're like, I'm one guy, but then I'm going to summon up these 3 Cauldron Born and chase you around, and they can do damage, and you can do some really cool stuff with that.
Sounds. I mean, first you'd go Disney, which would be actually a draw for Jen. I think
Oh,
she's
yeah.
a little fond of Disney, but the fact is that actually, the more you talk about, it, I'm like, that sounds kind of like my jam. Yeah,
It is a freaking good game. I enjoy it, and it's a 2-player duel type of game.
That's cool.
You can add more sets in, of course. They've got expansions. Or if you're like, I want to play the Horned King. Buy like 2 copies of the expansion set, or like, I've got one, now you go get one, and now we can both do it.
Yeah, yeah. And then what is this game here? I don't want to mispronounce it.
Mille fiori, boppere boopere.
Exactly.
And the thing is, for these games, I have to certify on them. So I have to sit down with somebody in a like Zoom meeting and prove that I know what's going on. So Ragnaroks was super simple. I got that done in like 5 minutes. But Sorcerer's Arena, it's a simple game, but there's a lot up front. So I'm wondering how that one's going to go, how difficult that's going to be. And then, Mille Fiori. We'll see. That is a super busy looking board.
Yeah, I'm looking at that board and I'm going, whoa, my.
but I don't think it's that
But
bad.
it says ages 10 plus, so I mean,
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that bad. And that is one of the ones that could be the breakout game of this year, the big board game that you hear so much about. That
Really?
could be
Wow.
one of them. It's
crap.
by Devir, Devir, and they put out a lot of hits.
But on the back, I see Schmidt.
No Schmidt.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't think it's out right now in the U.S. because I've got a copy. My copy has English, Spanish, Italian, and French instructions. It's got the 4 different books, so it's kind of funny.
But I think what Catan came out first. The guy there was German, maybe.
Yeah,
And for a while
I think this one might be
where
German too.
That board game renaissance really kind of started.
Well,
over
there's
there.
the whole Euro. I only play Euro board games because no matter what hobby you get into, there's somebody
some hipster.
to be a snob about it. I only play Bushmi D&D. Mhm. I must have the finest raw cuts directly from Gary Gygax's skull.
Exactly. All right. So yeah. So
But I put the Sorcerer's Arena there kind of like Pokemon, where you're like, it's a fun game, but can you play it in public?
oh yeah, because it's Disney. Yeah.
But if you can get past that, yeah, I highly recommend it.
But that made me think about something. I've been meaning to mention this on the podcast or otherwise, but I keep forgetting it. But when we went to MagCon, which is our buddy David Donahue's jam or whatever, and I hope it comes back.
I think you've said this, but go ahead.
Yeah. There was a guy who came up and was like raving about some game. And like we were like, oh, what is it? And he was like, it's Sheep Herder. And we were like, Sheep Herder? That sounds, lame or whatever. He goes, yeah, I mean, the dynamic, doesn't sound that thrilling, but the actual game mechanics are brilliant and just addictive, and I wanted to keep playing. But I thought, I guess for the general masses, Sheep Herder's better than for me. It'd be like Necromancer, and you're building your own undead death machine or whatever like that. Yeah, that sounds cool and metal to you and me, but to Joe Q Public, it might be like, ew, what is that?
But in this one, in the Thrills and Chills add-on, you do have the Horn King, and he's basically summoning up skeletons.
Yeah,
So he is the Necromancer.
No, that's pretty cool.
And then there's another one, Turning Tides or something like that. And I'm trying to think, who is the bad guy from Pirates of the Caribbean? Davy Jones. So you can get him,
Oh wow!
and he's putting curses on everybody.
Is
And
that
you want to have
guy
your
with the Cthulhu
yeah.
face? Oh,
So you've
wow.
got that guy, and he's putting curses on himself and your people. And the
and
more
they've-
curses they have, the more damage they do.
And they've got the Hogan, however you pronounce it, the voodoo doctor from Frog Prince, right?
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
mean,
they've got some naughty, fellows doing devious stuff.
and they do talk about like tournament play and stuff, and I could see that actually happening. It is a ton of fun.
Cool.
So I'll be doing Ragnaroks this Sunday, and
At
Sorcerers at next Sunday at Dragon's Nest, and Mille Fiori the next Sunday after that. So
Wow.
the next 3 Sundays in a row, I will be demoing out some games
So
for you
come-
good people if
come
you
play
need
some-
something to do.
play some board games with Eddie at Dragon's Nest on Sundays.
Yeah.
Sunday.
And I highly recommend, well, I can't highly recommend Mille Fiori yet because I haven't played it. I haven't even
played it
opened the box.
Yeah.
More than just to look at it because I got to certify on the other one, so I don't want to get any more board game rules on
Yeah,
on the top of my brain.
Yeah, get confused or something. So Heather and I had been looking at, she was like, well, I like the role-playing games, but I'm still not, I think, entirely comfortable. I don't know if I'm using the right word. I don't want to misspeak for Miss Heather. But anyway, she had talked about somebody or something had gotten her thinking about Descent. And I don't know, I can't remember where she heard about it or what got her thinking about it. But she was talking about, so we pulled up some good old YouTube videos and watched a few of Descent. And by Descent, there's 3 different versions. There's like Descent 1, Descent 2. Well, some people call this Descent 3, but it's actually its own game.
Yeah.
And it's Descent Depth.
And I think
into
1 and
Darkness or
2 are very different as well.
yeah, well, absolutely. Those were, hilariously enough, generally like you're playing D&D. Because let's face it, one person's the referee, game master, and the other people are the players, and they've got their characters, and you're stymieing their efforts. Well, yeah, I mean, this is basically D&D with more steps. It's a board game, for whatever. And I always laughed at, like, why not just go play like a role-playing game? But I guess for people that are like, I'm not going to play that devil game D&D, but I'll play this board game that is essentially the same damn thing.
As long as there's a board,
Yeah.
the devil can't get your soul.
Exactly. So, but this Descent, I can't remember the name. I feel bad now. It's a Descent into Darkness or whatever. it is clever in that it's got an app so that everyone gets to play. Like no one gets stuck being the referee.
But if you don't have the app, you don't have a game. You just have a box of stuff.
But I'll say that, well, yeah, but I mean, ultimately you can play it on your phone, a pad, a computer, a laptop, whatever. But I mean, yeah, you do have to have the app. But so I guess that's a negative. But
if you're doing it on your phone, I'm not trying to talk anybody out of this, but I'm just giving you the other side. Like if you're playing it on your phone, there'll be parts where it's like giving you the narration and stuff, and it's like, okay, everybody, let's gather around the phone. And it's like,
and I will say, one guy that was giving a review said playing on the phone is you want to pull your hair out. But now my phone, which is one of those big old fold whatever phones, yeah, it's not so bad. We were actually using it, but I looked at Heather and said, do you have a pad? Because I've got one somewhere. I don't want to dig it out. And she goes, I've got one. We'll load the app on it for the next time we play. But ultimately, I like that. Like she said, we get to play together, which is fun, you know. And then also, it's, you know, within our comfort zone. But actually, and I'll say that we only got to play the very first quest. And we did some things wrong because typical me, I'm not going to, I want to say guys, but I hate to stereotype in this day and age. But, you know, there's a book that comes with it like learn to play. And I was like, nah, I'm not going to read. I'm going to jump in and figuring that the first quest will be so just hold your hand, walk you through it.
And the thing is, if there's an app, yeah, I would expect the first one to be so easy, and the app is going to walk me through every little piece.
And no, I will say that first quest, we did some things wrong because it really didn't baby step you. Normally I get aggravated at that stuff, but in this instance, I was leaning into hoping it was going to do that real baby step stuff.
How did you like building the map as you went?
It wasn't bad because, I mean, there's only so many pieces. The only thing was, though, I had no idea how big it was going to get. You better have some space because I cleared off part of the game table because it's set up for a paint table right now. Yeah, it actually was quite sprawling.
And again, with the first level, you think quick, easy, small.
No, like you start like on the verge of like the marsh, and then the marsh goes to this gate, and in the gate you're inside of like this, you know, watchtower, and then you're out the other side of the watchtower back in the marsh. I mean, yeah, it's but it would be like Eddie we're getting at is if you expected small, you might be a little but if you're figuring how much can fit in a box, it's a big box, it's heavy, and I will say the quality of the terrain, the pieces and things, I really like it. The miniatures are well made, they're gorgeous, they're sturdy. I can't wait to paint them. I mean, they're really nice miniatures. And the actual terrain bits are really, it's that good, thick, heavy stock. So far, I mean, the app was pretty robust. And the stuff's well made, and I enjoyed the first quest. And now realizing that after playing it, set the hook enough for me to go back and read the learn to play, knowing what we did wrong, I can see where I'll probably have even more fun next time. I know you showed some interest, so we'll have to find some time where you can have up to 4 players.
Now, one of the reviews I watched, and you might have seen it too, was like, it's a lot better as a single player game.
I didn't see that, but now I will say the one guy, what's like most of these are Brits. Why have most of these game reviews are Brits, and I'm like, yeah, because they talk kind of fast for us Americans, especially Southerners, and we're just like, whoa, slow down. And then for 2, they're cutting up and being cute to keep you entertained, but I just get to the point. But so I said, where's that one guy like Dice Tower or something, the American guy? But that guy was pooping all over the game from the get. I was like, all right, this guy's, I think like this smells of a role-playing game, and I'm a board game purist or something, where he just had something. So we quit watching him because he kept pooping all over it, you know. But anyway, needless to say, we said, let's just make up our own minds. We played it. We've had fun, you know. I could see where if it's something to where, like I said, we're me and Heather at home, well, you can't eat. You could play, you know, D&D just the 2 people, but it's nice to have the app be the referee and get to play.
All right, shock them with a sticker price.
Yeah, it's $139, and it's so. But again, I'll say I've bought some board games in the last 10 years, and pound per pound, the quality of it, the sturdiness of it, the content or whatever. And you remember, folks, I'm what some people would call thrifty. I really wasn't upset. I mean, but I will say it's a lot to pay for a board game, but I've seen some of these other board games that they ain't cheap. Some of these other ones, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, $139, it's a little bit of a kick in the tail, but one cool thing is I could see where you probably get enough play out of this to get your value. If you like it and you keep playing it, I mean, you can use these different cards and pieces and one thing I thought was kind of cool was, in the adventure, there was in more than one occasion where it asked my character I'm playing, like, do you take the noble route or the cause of the people? You know, and it asked Heather's character again. They're supposed to be based off your choices, like as the story goes on, because you chose like my own, advancement and to be the best penultimate wizard, or I just want to, do what I can to help the people, So it's neat that they've got that built in too. Anyway, yeah, I enjoyed it. So
how do you like the art?
Well, I'm not crazy about that. I'll say that, but when I say that, on the character cards for the characters, whoever the artist was, I wish they'd pick somebody else. I'm not in love with the artwork. But the miniatures and the actual, terrain, the terrain looks great. The box looks great. The miniatures look fantastic. But unfortunately, you do stare down at the character card. Not crazy about the artwork on the character. But it's not like, I can't stand to look at this. But yeah, I'm like,
it's just not appealing.
Yeah, I don't know why they picked this artist. I wish they had said, let's go get somebody else. I'm really not in love with the artwork on the character cards. But as far as the cards that show like, this is the armor I'm wearing, or the helmet I've got, or the potion, all that's fine. It's just, I'm not crazy about the art on the character cards.
And the one game that I got, Escape Dark Tower or whatever, you had the expansion for it?
Oh, yeah, that I gave you for the holidays.
Yeah, I think that's supposed to be kind of like GM, like DM-less D&D or what have you.
Oh, cool. I can't wait to check that out.
So we'll have to check that out sometime and see. I think that one's going to lean a lot more towards like a choose-your-own adventure, but you have hit points. So maybe more like the fighting fantasy books.
Well, you remember I bought that one little off like drive-through or where it was or somewhere, like smaller soft-bound RPG that you can play solo. And I was really talking to the guy because I thought he was from Coppell, Texas, but it turns out he's from Coppell, North Dakota or something like that, because I thought he's a local boy. And the guy goes, I appreciate the shout out, but I'm not in Coppell, Texas. But what I liked was he did a series of adventures that are pretty decent. But the cool thing about him was if you use his little role playing rules, you don't have to have other, like there are tables that can generate the outcome of what happens, and so you don't have to have a referee. So I'm often thought about, you could probably use that and play with multiple people, But anyway. It's not going to be as probably robust as experience if you had a live actual referee.
Oh yeah, of course.
But there's something to be said for everybody getting to play.
But soon, One D&D will have the GM AI built in, so you won't even need anybody to play the GM anymore.
I am WokeBot 101. Anyway, we'll see.
How much virtue would you like for that role? We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
But that's another reason, going back to the OGL, that they're going to have a hard time with that, because GMs and DMs are the ones that make a lot of the buying decisions. And they're usually the ones that are further into the hobby and the more knowledgeable about it and more likely to use third-party stuff and say, screw you, buddy. Yeah. So, okay. So now to finally get to the topic at about an hour in.
So we're not going to pause.
I don't think that's... Oh, do you want me to pause for the cause?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Pause for the cause. And we're back. So this little break, we have a little bit more news for you. This stream that we were watching was apparently based off of that. WotC usually has a stream Thursdays at 3 Eastern. So nothing came of that. It was a big waste of our time.
Yeah.
You wanted to add something about the server, the D&D's Beyond subscriptions, though, I think?
What they were saying on that thing while you were using the head was that basically... they were saying that, there were so many people canceling their D&D Beyond accounts, it crashed their server.
Like me.
Yeah, you canceled. And I think Adrian said she was going to cancel hers. So, yeah.
But the conspiracy theory is...
Well, like I said, probably they just took it down. It didn't crash because people were...
Yeah, stop them from canceling.
Mm-hmm.
So while I was enjoying that bathroom break, Goodman Games has an official response.
Oh, they do.
Which, of course, like I said, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So here's what they had to say. We have reviewed the possible changes and determined that they will not impact our line of role-playing games, including DCC, MCC, X-Crawl, and related products. 5e Fantasy, Original Adventures Reincarnated 7, and 8, and any related products and our other lines. Fans, don't worry. We think it will all be just fine.
Oh, good.
So that's where I was at.
Yeah.
I'll worry when he tells me to worry.
Well, good. Then full steam ahead.
I am impressed that they're like, even the 5th edition line won't be impacted.
Wow.
So I don't know if they know anything that
okay. It's one thing if you decide to put out something without talking to D&D first, and you just plaster the little OGL, page in your book. But in these instances, those 5th edition Adventures Reincarnated are definitely those OS. What are those called? The OSR line or whatever. The ones.
Original Adventures Reimagined.
Yeah, or yeah, all those ors were done under the auspices through an agreement directly with WotC, so it's not like just something they did and put the OGL on it. It was made under an agreement, so yeah, I mean that should cover them in that regard, I would think.
Which, if I didn't brag on myself enough, by the way, if I didn't mention it, which I'm sure I did, but Carnage and Casino will be in the next bundle thing that they put out.
Good deal. I kept looking for it in this bundle.
Not a humble bundle, but something different.
Oh, cool. But that's great.
So that I get the money and not charity. Screw charity.
Whatever. Y'all know we love charities.
And speaking of one more thing that we almost passed by, barbecue talk.
Oh, my, yeah.
Do we want to do this one?
Yeah, just a quick shout out.
They were lovely people.
Yeah, they were really nice people. We went to the Harrison.
Okay, enough of that.
All right. But we went to the Harrison Culinary Company over in Liberty City, and we had some barbecue with them.
And we got to speak for Dragon's Nest.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. Do you guys, work for them? No, but we speak for them. I was wearing my Dragon's Nest hipster cap,
Beanie.
But anyway, yeah. But they were very nice folks. Absolutely.
Okay. Here's one more. Since I can think of things while we took that little break, we will soon be leaving SoundCloud. We've moved on to Podbean, something like that. You'll get the official.
I had looked at Podbean a long time ago, and I don't know if I'd mentioned it, but I had looked at it. But yeah.
So everything is there now. We should be able to cut ties with SoundCloud.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah, cool.
Thanks and goodbye. Yeah. And I've uploaded some of the more recent episodes to YouTube now. If you're checking those out,
yeah, we're on iTunes, and we're on. It sounds like Podbean, and we're on YouTube.
Oh, and Amazon, because that's one of you're like, if you tie your RSS feed in, then you'll be here, there, and everywhere. So we should be a lot more here, there, and everywhere now that we're rapidly approaching episode 100.
Do we have anything to tell Larry?
Nope.
Okay, good.
He's only here for the barbecue talk.
That's right.
So we gave him the barbecue talk.
Yeah, that was for you, Larry.
Specifically.
Exactly.
But yeah, now that you mention it, we did have one more viewer or listener question.
Oh my!
From Jonathan out in California.
Thanks,
so
Jonathan.
You haven't been hit with this question already. You have no foreknowledge. You haven't had any time to think of it.
None.
What are your favorite alternative history games / modules? Or what alternative history game / module would you like to see? And while you think about it, I will take the best answer and say Weird Frontiers.
Oh, yeah.
Because that is an alternate Old West.
Yeah.
And I think in the historical thing, that is one of the things. I mean, we're doing medieval knights all the time. So to get away from that, then I would say maybe the next thing would be Wild West.
Yeah.
So Weird Frontiers, it's back in stock as we speak, but not for long. And this is the last chance you get at the one volume.
Yeah.
Next time it'll be two
large books, but not quite as large. Well, that's cool. Talking about, I know that I've in recent time become quite fond of Savage Worlds as a system, and they have their Weird War 2, where on top of Nazis, you might find fight vampires or werewolves or zombie Nazis or whatever. That intrigues me. I haven't played it yet, but that intrigues me, and I've thought about possibly purchasing the books for that to check that out. I think it just make kind of neat, your Nazis are streaming towards your gun nest and you're mowing them down, and about that time one of them all of a sudden doubles over and then jumps back up and he's a werewolf, and you're like, oh shit. I mean, that would be kind of interesting.
It sounds kind of Hellboy-esque.
Yeah, and I love Hellboy. So all right,
okay, now that we have broken the 1 hour mark and had taken a break, we can charge back into it with what the actual topic is today.
Let them have it, Eddie.
Which I don't know what the exact name of this, but WotC or D&D fucks up all the time.
Yeah,
they have a history of fucking up. They have a history of outraging their fans. And
just missteps,
being out for the money.
Yeah.
So, what have you got? And maybe mine's earlier or not, but
And I think some of my stuff might veer off from what you're saying, but yeah, it's like I know that one of the older things you can go back to talking about as a company just doing something really dumb, the Palace of the Silver Princess.
well, before that, I would
Go
say
Yeah.
Gary screwing over Arnson.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, we've talked about that before, but yeah, I mean, and it's why I feel bad for what happened to Gary and his ouster. But at the same time, when you look at all the biographies I've read, I feel like it was a little karmic maybe because Arneson got a really raw deal. I feel like.
Yeah, and this is not the slam Gary Gygax thing.
So much admiration for him creating this and bring what he did for the hobby. I mean, seriously.
I think that was one of those things as he got older and wiser. Mm-hmm. He even realized, hey, I did some screwed up stuff back then.
Yeah. But he went Hollywood and he was out, in California doing.
All right, wait for it.
Oh, sorry.
Wait for it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got the very foundations of D&D.
Yeah.
When you have McGarry and Arnson and all those guys, and there was a lot of, I'm trying to think what the other guy, besides McGarry, I want to say Carr, but that's probably not it.
Maybe.
But where they were doing their board games
mm-hmm.
and not getting paid by TSR.
Yeah.
Because TSR, being Gary Gygax at the time, was screwing with their royalties and the way they were going to get paid.
Yeah.
And in 1979, Advanced D&D was primarily to eliminate Arnson's royalties.
Mm-hmm.
The anecdote that perhaps reveals the greatest height of warfare between Arnson and TSR is at Origins 4 in 1978. D&D received a few awards, which TSR dutifully claimed, but when the award for all-time best role-playing game was announced, Arnson raced to the podium and grabbed the plaque. Mm-hmm. No one made a fuss about it. People cheered because already by 1978, they'd had enough of TSR and Gary Gygax's fuckery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And so even then, back then, greed was, and that's a shame.
It was built off of greed.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see. His argument was that individuals should be recognized, not publishing companies, an argument that today is still felt strongly by many designers as publishers continue to remain in the driver's seat for the entire role-playing field other than small press categories such as indies and OSR publishers. Mm-hmm. But the publisher is the one that has all the power, but the writer is the one making this big creative thing, and they kind of get screwed over.
Yeah, you're the creative. You're the one that created this. Yeah, well, you never got it to market. No one never known about it if it wasn't for me, the publisher,
Historically, TSR, Gary Gygax, had a war with Gamma, which was all the small publishers banding together to protect themselves from all the TSR cease and desist letters. And your game has a D20 in it. That's us. That's ours. That's everything, ever with that is ours.
Yeah.
And Origins. He was at war with Origins.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you want to hit yours? Maybe that's where it falls into the timeline here.
Yeah, but it's like the Palace of the Silver Princess. It was recalled on the same day it was released. Gene Wells wrote the original orange version. Yeah, Tom Moldave rewrote it, the green cover. Characters of at the time employees were done by Errol Otis. And some and not flattering, and other art was described as overtly sexual. But it's like there's very little oversight on this, and it got all the way to being published. And then the day it came out, it's like, holy crap, what did you do?
See, you're doing a misstep, whereas I'm doing blatantly like this company was founded on
and
greed.
Which I do segue into that, but I just figured overall that was one of
that's
those things.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's
still an interesting topic
on their part. As a company that this module went all the way through editing and the artwork, and then to hit the street and to literally be recalled the same day, and piles of them were burnt in a landfill or whatever. But anyway, it just shows you that TSR and these gaming companies, well, them as a company, they've made a number of blunders and errors. Carry on.
Yeah, and it's again, when this was all wargaming rules and there was no money in it, and it was for the love of the hobby and for the love of the game, then these things could be trusted, and it came out of that. Everybody was sharing ideas like, hey, I took your rule set and turned it into this. Yeah. Oh, well, I turned that rule set into that.
Yeah.
So
Gygax loved gaming and he loved games. Unfortunately, when he started making money at it, he got kind of greedy. Like I said, he went to California and was doing coke off hookers' butts and all that stuff or whatever. I was going to mention next was TSR's ousting of Gygax.
Oh,
unless before then,
a little bit more. You've got that they thought the money train would never end.
Yeah.
That they just thought that the big first edition that was going to roll on forever, and they would never ever again need any money. That the sunny days are here. It's never going to rain again.
Yeah.
And that's where they kind of screwed up on that.
Yeah.
Because that led to massive overprinting. Everything, it was like, oh, every one of these will be a million seller. And then they ended up with so much of that stuff in the warehouse.
Yeah. So, like I said, TSR's ousting of Gygax, albeit not the worst idea, because he was mismanaging some things and he went out to Hollywood and all this stuff.
He wasn't a businessman.
Yeah. Entrusting it to the Dills, which is that Lorraine.
Now, why did they have to be brought in? Because the money train ended and they were overprinting all this stuff.
Yep.
So they needed money to just get the basic books back out
and
get money in. So yeah,
here came
go back
Lorraine
to
Williams with that Buck Rogers money or whatever. And then once she took over, talking about overprinting stuff, they doubled down. They decided, she was adamant they had to use that IP from her family to do a Buck Rogers role-playing game. Nobody in the 80s or 90s wanted to play. They're like, who or what is Buck Rogers? I mean, that's a concept from
Bitty.
Yeah, the serials and cartoons from what was that, the 30s or 40s or something. Anyway,
which is funny though, because it's like, now that I'm the head of this company, we're going to heavily invest in this story, this character, this IP that my family owns. So let me negotiate both sides. I think we should pay $10 million for this. Yes, I'll accept $10 million. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And the thing is, Lorraine Williams she knew nothing about D&D as a game, the concept, role-playing, or any of that. And it's good to have someone in there that knows how to run a business, because Gygax knew games, but maybe didn't really know how to run a business.
He ran his business like a game.
Yeah. And Lorraine, unfortunately, didn't know anything about role-playing games. Talking about what he said, there were way too many settings in the 90s. In 1992 alone, there was Greyhawk, Dragonlance, Forgotten Realms, Alkademe, Dark Sun, Spelljammer, Ravenloft, Hollow World, and Thunder Rift.
What about Birthright? And wasn't there the one where you played as dragons?
I just fixed to mention. Council of the Worms came out in 94,
that's it. Ding, ding,
and then
ding.
Birthright in 1995. So within the span of, a handful of years, you had way too many settings and stuff. And you'd figure, well, that'll expand D&D. No, you're just bisecting. Like, there's still going to X number of fans. You're bisecting them into, well, we're Birthriders. Well, we're Alkademers.
Yeah, like I was a Ravenloft guy.
Yeah.
So I didn't buy anything Forgotten Realms except some of the novels.
Yeah. So the final days of TSR coincided with the early days of the internet.
Okay.
This was when the company's reputation tanked hard. One nickname the company got at this time was TSR. They sue regularly because at the time TSR was ridiculously litigious.
Yeah, and maybe not cutting you off on this one, but
yeah,
at the early days of the internet, when you would see TSR typed out, it was $R, and that wasn't for the cute little dragon to be wrapped around in that.
No.
That was because of the greedy reputation that TSR had.
Exactly.
So go ahead.
So that's what Eddie's saying. Is if you're really paying attention, this is nothing new. This cycle is played out over and over and over.
When I put this up on the Facebook, the little picture that I want to use is the one from Buster Scruggs, where the guy's being hung, and he's like, first time?
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, you guys that got into this at 5th edition, welcome to the party. We got the lube for you.
Yeah. So they sued fans for publishing their content online. Most of these cases were dismissed because it was some fan crap or whatever. Most of these cases, like I said, but the ill will grew and sales went deep into the red. Okay. And then what did that set up for? Here come WotC.
Oh, okay. Now let me jump in here.
Jump in, yeah.
In all the brilliant ideas that TSR had around this time, and maybe just a smidge earlier, what got popular? Magic the Gathering. So what did the brilliant TSR do?
They came out with their card game,
Spellfire,
and they just rehashed old artwork they'd had for years until it was a really crappy card game. And they spent a fortune on these cards, and they made tons of them. It tanked. Then they did their dice game. And
that's the other thing I was going to say. Because I think they did those about the same time. They were like, boy, if they like cards, they'll love dice.
Yeah, instead of waiting to see if one or the other works. And like I said, at this time, remember, they had, let's do Alkademe and let's do, Dark Sun and,
collectible collectible dice game.
Yeah, collectible dice. Because I love how the first time I even heard of it, I was a D&D guy, and I was a little bit of a fanboy, but even I was like, a dice game,
Did you ever see anybody playing Spellfire?
No, and I had a few. I bought a deck for me and Gary, I think. We tried to play it one time, and we were like, this is lame. It was poopy.
I actually bought a couple of decks the other day because they showed up at my friendly local video game shop, Games to Go. And I just got them. I think they were like $4 a piece or something like that. Yeah, on a total goof. And I was like, at some point we should play this just, to see how it was and go like, ha 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 ha.
It was
these idiots.
It was like almost. It seemed like in my memory, it was like playing War, which you can do with a deck of cards. You just got some cool artwork on the cards. It's like,
but they heavily invested in that, and they were gonna. That was their like, we're gonna screw over WotC, and we'll take Magic the Gathering away from them.
And this is where they can kick themselves in the ass. Old Richard Garrett had came to them first. WotC was like the third, fourth, fifth company they went to. They went to Steve Jackson Games. They went to TSR. TSR could have saved the company.
There's so many of those though, where it's like if TSR had jumped on this.
Yeah. But so WotC steps in because the company's floundering. He's able to buy it. Old David Atkinson, whatever his name is, the WotC guy. He bought up, TSR, and people were like, "Yay, he's a gamer and he's going to save the day." And here came the third edition of D&D.
Well, yeah, and then let me go back that second edition, first edition advanced was to cut out Arnson.
Yeah.
Second edition advanced was to cut out Gygax. So, I mean, there's a record of it already because we're about to hit third edition
of screwing this one over, screwing that one over, money grabs, crash grabs, greed. If you pay attention, greed is a common denominator.
So you were there in the switch. Well, you were probably there from the switch to 1 to 2.
Oh yeah, I've been here.
But was there anything? Was there like, rah, we're not going to switch to 2? That was kind of.
But this is before the internet, where you didn't even kind of know to be outraged about some of the stuff wasn't common knowledge.
But to go from 2 to 3. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Go ahead with what you got.
So I can crap on third edition all day, but one of the things that chapped people's asses early was releasing 3.5 D&D just 3 years after third edition arrived. So people like me.
What was the justification for 3.5?
That they had apparently didn't test it enough, and once it got out in the
wild,
they
needed to fix 3.
They needed to fix some things from 3, and so I remember I bought like the 3 core books you're always going to buy: Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, DMG. To buy them again 3.5 years later, initially I was like, kiss my what. But then eventually I succumbed and I did buy them. So I mean, for a lot of people, you bought the 3 core books back to back in the span of 3 years. That kind of aggravated some people.
Okay. With WotC taking it over, with WotC being a smaller company that just kind of exploded with magic money, would you say that at least at third edition, that WotC was still in it for the love of the game?
So initially, I do feel like, I can't remember if it's Atkinson, Atchison, whatever. But I'm talking about David, what's his name, that owned WotC. I think he really did have a lot of nostalgia for D&D. He played it as a kid. He saw the company's fun. I don't think it was like, he wanted to save this game. He wanted to.
Because there probably was no thought that this is ever going to bounce back and be a billion seller again. It's probably like, this was a fad, but I want to keep it alive.
I'm making enough money with Magic, I can take on this passion project with D&D. So, and
at third edition and 3.5,
people were a little chapped.
WotC did a lot of things for the players.
Oh yeah, well they brought back Greyhawk because TSR moved away from Greyhawk because they were trying to cut out Gary and alienate him and disenfranchise him, and anything that he did or was really tied to him, they wanted to poop on it. So really, a lot of the old diehards like me, when we saw that we're embracing Greyhawk as our core world or whatever, when they first brought it back, I was like, yes, because that's where I started, was in Greyhawk.
And the creation of Greyhawk and having somebody that would read those adventures and give them quality control. So there was some passion from WotC there at the beginning.
And they had Living Greyhawk, which at the end of the day, it does promote their game, but really, that's why I think when later on when Hasbro was in charge and 4th edition came out, and after that, they did away with Living Greyhawk because ultimately the people they had on staff and the overseeing of that didn't generate enough cash in their mind to make it worthwhile. But Living Greyhawk was brilliant and it was awesome, but that was more about for the players, and it still was a good thing for the company. It did promote more people. I won't lie, I really wasn't crazy about 3.5, but Living Greyhawk, which I love and have all these fond memories for, I came into it for that and stayed with it for that reason. But anyway, but you see, of course, they got away from it because it's all about money. But here's where it got bad. And I don't know if Hasbro was involved by this point. I don't think they were. But as time marched on and the game did better and better and started making more and more money, still, WotC's a business. It had people that wanted to see money generated. And this might be, I don't know if they'd sold it by this point, but later on in the latter years, I noticed of like the 3.5 years, there was a new book that came out every month.
Yep.
Every month. Now you have to ask yourself, with that kind of a timeline, how much time do you have for quality?
Right. Okay. Did you do this much homework? Do you know how many splat books there were?
I don't know the exact number, but I want to hear this.
Yeah. The number of official books, this is not third-party books, 72.
Think about that. It came out in 2001 and it went away in 2008, I think was when 4th edition came out. In the span of 7 years, you put out, and that's not even probably counting the 3 core books.
It is.
Oh, it is.
It's not just, I guess, the splat books, but it's the 3 core books and the 3 core books.
Yeah.
And then what did you get? Player's Handbook 2 and 3?
There was a Player's Handbook 2 and 3, a DMG 2. There was Monster Manual 1 and 2. There was Book of Vile Darkness, And don't get me wrong, kind of like I'll say again with 5th edition. Initially, I was impressed with the core game. I don't hate the game dynamics. And again, Xanathars, that's a quality product, cover to cover. I was really impressed with that. But then, like, the 3 books have come out in the last year, total crap. Yeah. And that's because they were set on some sort of a timeline. They got some lowest common denominator people to write this stuff, whatever.
But it seems like even a lot of the biggest hardcore fans have been like, those books stink.
And I'll tell you, there were guys I knew, God bless old George and old Aaron, but they bought everything that came out for 3rd edition. They had like bookshelves that were bowed under these.
Well, the good thing was,
encyclopedias.
The good thing was when 3.5 came out, there was never, ever, ever going to be another edition, and you'd never have to buy anything different.
That was their thought process. And when they heard about 4th edition, those guys nearly had seizures. I mean, they had meltdowns on the internet because they were like, you betrayed my trust, WotC. I bought this like as a kid, if you don't have to remember, your family having that set of encyclopedias. That's what it was like having all these books. If you bought them, I'm an old dog. I bought the 3 core books, and there were 1 or 2 other standouts that I thought, that's worth buying.
Did you have Vile Darkness?
I think I did. And I had the horror book. The horror book was pretty good. But anyway, WotC's 3rd edition vomited out a new book each month. That many books, that fast. Come on, that was a cash grab. And the rush content was crap. This was TSR at the end all over again. You're just pumping out these books. But it was trying to make themselves profitable. Hasbro comes in.
Which I get as a publisher, you've got to publish new stuff.
Yeah.
I get it.
But make it quality content.
At 5th edition, when 5th edition kicked off, I think they had a lot of self-control on that. They paced it pretty well. Like, here's 1 or 2 books a year.
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah, they eked them out, and I thought that was brilliant. I wouldn't like, where's that next book? I have to buy some D&D product. Well, there was third-party stuff that was really good.
But yeah, 3.5 going into 4 is probably the biggest outrage because the internet was in swing by that time. And that's when you think of like big controversies in D&D. You got Gary getting ousted from the company, and probably even bigger than that because of the internet is 3.5 goes into 4, and guess what? All your books are worthless now.
Yep.
The rise of Pathfinder.
And that's what I mentioned. The much maligned 4th edition, it homogenized the classes and made the game more like a computer game. People hated it, and there was a mass exodus to Pathfinder. People want classes to feel unique. And we played 4th edition, and it's not utterly terrible. We played it for almost
it's really not D&D either,
but
though.
it's not. Yes, not really D&D. And I will say, of the various editions I played, I mean, there were a few little takeaways that I enjoyed, but overall, if we'd ran that campaign in 1st, 2nd edition, I'd have been just as happy, or probably happier.
And just for us personally, when we were playing 4th and then we went back to Pathfinder, everybody was like, hallelujah, this is the best game ever. It's so much more fun now. Which is crazy in a way when you think about it now.
Yeah. But that's one of those things where, Pathfinder was, hilariously enough, There were a couple of niggling things about 3.5 that the player base complained about constantly, and they never budged on it. And the second Pathfinder took over, they put up some forums and people said, you need to change power attack and you need to change, these couple of things. I went, oh, okay. And they came up with a way that was very elegant and worked a lot better. And you're thinking, why didn't WotC ever budge on that?
And again, Paizo takes over D&D in a way there with Pathfinder, and it becomes another labor of love.
Because of the OGL, And so anyway, 4th edition tanked.
But in 4th edition, boy, it seemed like we got stuff from WotC all the time. Like, here's some free adventures. Here's some free posters. Here's some free bookmarks. Free. Please, somebody come play this game.
Yeah. Because it was a mass exodus, and Pathfinder was the triumphant role-playing game for a minute there, and which blew everyone's mind, because we're like, what could you imagine a time when D&D wasn't the number one role-playing game in the world?
Or to go to like the console video game analogies and be like, when PlayStation kicked Nintendo's ass, and it's like, wait, what?
Yeah. But anyway, so anything in this time frame that you'd want to reference?
To go back to 4th edition, where it was like, please come play our game. We'll give you this and that, and here's all these little events that we're doing.
And little freebies and things, yeah.
Then you get to 5th edition, and they're back on top.
And then, boy, when we reached out like other companies, we said, hey, we'd love some prize support. We promote your game and whatever. And they'll go, yeah, we'd be glad to send you this or send you that or whatever. We got an automated robo letter, basically in a very, very nice way saying, screw off.
Yeah, we have nothing for you.
We're on top, punks. We don't need you.
And they really half-hearted did Adventures League. And look where that's been left to die now. Yeah. As much as you people out there may have loved Adventures League at some point in time, and as useful as it was to the club.
And we played the crap out of it, yeah.
Look at it now. Look how it languishes because nobody cares. It doesn't bring in money for them. It might bring in money for conventions because you're like, I want to go play this big epic. But because it doesn't put any money in WotC's pocket, they don't care. Yeah. And now that 5th edition is riding high, they don't care, where they're like, oh, let's send out some modules to the stores. Let's send out posters and all this stuff like we did before.
Yeah, I remember when 5th came out, I had a cool little folder that had like, well, I'm of this faction, so look at my cool folder. And I get a little standee for my character with my faction symbol for it. I get a player sheet with all this little cool stuff on it. They gave you all that stuff beginning of 5th edition. You haven't seen that stuff since back when they were trying to get people to play 5th edition.
Yep. Once it started to take off, it was like, thanks, we don't need to do anything anymore.
Well, yeah, and this was good for them, but it was also good for the game stores that would host it. Again, they're not doing. They don't care about. This is what aggravates me, is they don't care about the game stores that help build their game, because it's like, it's just how terrible that, like, you wouldn't be where you're at right now if it wasn't for the game stores. So if you turn your back on them, like, this is so callous.
Yeah. Well, how do you like the one that was located right next to them in Seattle, the Magic the Gathering shop? That they pretty much shut down and put out of business. The guy's like, I see the writing on the wall where this is going. We're done. So you had people that worked at WotC that was their friendly local game store, and they killed it. The corporation killed it.
Wow. So, we won't beat that dead horse, but I'm not overly enthused with a lot of things that WotC's done as a company in the last couple of years. But then this is Hasbro, which is their parent. And I'll say this, like, we've met Kirk Gould at North Texas. He works in some capacity for WotC. Super nice guy. Never been anything but very likable, affable. I don't want people to go after people that work for them or poop on them. They're good people, and they have no control over this. Well,
apparently there's been a leak come out just recently too from someone at WotC that is saying, like, this is all corporate decisions. Us people that are in the field and the creative types have nothing to do with this, and we agree with you. But if they said something like that publicly, it'd be like, okay, now you're fired.
Yeah, because case in point, if you don't think that's the case, if you'll remember about 2 or 3 podcasts back, I had mentioned there was the guy that was over D&D. I can't think of his name right now, and he was there when they announced one D&D with a big smile on his face, and then a week later you were like, what happened to that guy? He's gone. Yeah, the word in the street is, if you can believe it, he stood up and spoke up in some shareholders meeting, and when they talked about, we're going to do away with the OGL, and he said, you shouldn't do it. It's a bad idea. So they fired him.
It amuses me now that they've got another Williams at the helm.
Yeah. And what's funny is the new woman that came from Microsoft, which her forte is microtransactions. She admits she knows nothing about D&D, but she's in charge of D&D.
I'm not mad at her.
Yeah.
She's there to make money,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what she's going to do. So it's not like she chose this. Like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ruin D&D for you.
Yeah, blame the people at Hasbro. Yeah, but let's look at the stuff that's been released in the last year. Spelljammer released last year, crap. A lot of the latest content is bad, like Strixhaven, all that stuff, just crap. It seems rushed, and if history repeats itself, now Hasbro's, this is Hasbro's greed, and then we have, of course, the new OGL. But like I said, and it's funny, that was the content of yours, and at the end of mine, I see a pattern. TSR, WotC, and now, Hasbro WotC 5e. Big companies are only concerned with profit.
No.
But how to make money selling a product that encourages people to use their imagination. As a kid growing up, those books weren't that expensive, but I was a poor boy from the country. I didn't own a lot of the old school cool modules. I've got to play them in more recent years, and I've loved to finally get to play the Tower of Inverness. And people go, what? That module's been around for 50, 40 years. I never got to play it. But I mean, as a kid, there weren't that many stores that carried the product, didn't have the money. But what was great was I learned to write my own campaign, write my own adventures, And so definitely if they put all this stuff on a computer, well, then it's different. You know what I mean? I don't know. But we talked about the whole microtransactions, VTTs. They're going to charge you for the new hairdo for your character, a different build, the cool new weapon with particle effects or whatever on the virtual tabletop. It's going to be all these. And there are kids that do this stuff all day long in video games. They'll probably segue right over and go, and they'll just pay away or whatever. And I mean, if that's what they want and they're happy, knock yourself out. This is where things are going to diverge. There's a fork in the road. You're going to go virtual and you're going to do microtransactions, or you're going to embrace more traditional, gaming, So anyway, but yeah, this is just one misstep after another. But the common thread through it all is greed.
Yeah, they do this crap every 5-10 years.
Yeah, there's a cycle.
So this may be one of the biggest screws up.
Oh yeah.
But if you've been paying attention, they've been doing stuff to piss off the fan base for their entire existence.
So I want you to understand something. Even if you're over going, well, I just hope someone comes in that appreciates the D&D and buys it up. Yeah, and then because it's still they're going to be a company wanting to make a buck, greed's going to rear its ugly head, and if it does start doing well again, we're going to go back another cycle. This best bet is though,
to everybody run over to Savage Worlds, make it the #1 role-playing game,
and
so that they'll become a massive corporation.
Or whatever. Shane Hinz is one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. But what I was getting at is, yeah, definitely I would say support these smaller companies that don't have shareholders or whatever. Like I think Shane Hensley owns a company, and I don't think he's got shareholders or something. So he's not beholden to anyone. Or another example,
Goodman Games,
which we love, Joe Goodman or whatever. And I don't think there's shareholders there either. So again, time to try something different, try something new, and I would even tell you to you can try Ozark or one of these old school retro clones. But my concern is we're worried about the local game store. We love the local game store and we want you to keep it going. So you got to support a product that
they sell,
that they sell at this store.
And you got to buy it from them.
Or if not, buy something there. Like anytime you walk in the door, buy a miniature, buy some dice. If they have food, buy a burger. If they got Japanese plushies and Japanese candy, buy some of that.
Get some Pokemon cards.
Yeah, exactly. Heck yeah.
Get a crippling addiction to cardboard like me.
But that's where I would say quit feeding the beast. Don't buy anything that's WotC Hasbro, please. And definitely support your friendly local game store, and be willing to try something different or new.
Yeah, and this is a cycle. It might be, well, okay, I'm not going to buy any 6th edition, but when 7 comes around and they're like, we learned our lesson, please forgive us. Okay, I'll get into 7th edition. But then that 8th edition, boy, they just sold out again. Yeah. It's a cycle.
For what it's worth, slap me on the hand, but I was very adamant. I was not I would not go to 5th. And Brother Gary showed up my door with the book and put it in my hand and was like, come on, man.
And we had talked about that the other day, and I was like, well, I was pushed into 5th edition.
Oh, I know.
And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, by you and Matt.
Yeah.
So Gary got you, and you and Gary got me.
Because I'll say I was running Castles and Crusades. We were having a ton of fun. It was a great
fantastic
game.
time.
It can't be bad because TJ ran out and bought the books. And TJ, God bless him, I'm so sorry. He was so pissed off because he just bought the books, and here we come with 5th edition. But I'm telling you, Gary's been a friend for a long time, and he kind of, if anybody can kind of finagle me, you know. And but no, I was adamant I was not going to 5th edition, and you know, because I had helped play test it. We did D&D Next, that they'd given me the beta material to run, and I ran it and was like, man, you know, I'm not buying another set of books from these guys. You know, I was like, and you know, thing if we'd stuck with Castles and Crusades, there's newer, nicer books have come out, but it's still essentially the same game. We could still be cruising along with that, you know. But anyway, and it's a game that I love. There are some great guys out of Arkansas, or not far away, good old country boys, you know, Arkansas. And they actually worked with Gygax very closely towards the end of his life. Great bunch of guys. That's a game that and you could go buy that at a store or whatever, so it's not a dead game. That they use the Siege engine, so they're not worried about the OGL. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, check out some different games, man. You know, DCC, Castles and Crusades, Savage Worlds, whatever. You know.
But if this is your first time to go through a D&D controversy,
yeah,
we've been there. We've survived it before. We will roll on.
Yeah. We were laughing at basically Cody came in during the 5e era, and pretty soon if they go to a new version of the game, he'll be that old grognard going, "Foop, no, I won't go 5th edition." Yeah, I was there at
And I've seen a lot of people that came in at 5th that I'm like, I don't want to say like fair weather fans, because that's not exactly it, but more like loyalist diehards, which I think we probably all start off as.
Yeah.
And it's like, whatever they do, they can't do anything wrong. And I've seen them already say, I'm not going. I'm not moving up to the next one. And I was like, damn, I thought you'd be the first one in line.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I'm tickled because there's always going to be some sycophantry, but no, I'm trying not to be mean about this, but I hate what's happening to the third-party publishers and how this is going to impact them. They're going to have to let people go maybe, or companies might fold. I hate that, but I'm not upset about a move away from 5th edition. There are other games that are just as good or better. If this is what it takes to get them to freaking finally try it, so be it. You know, or keep playing 5th, because again, it's going to be a dead game soon.
But I have often said that this RPG bubble has to pop.
And I thought about that this morning. I was like, this guy's been saying for years, this bubble's got to pop at some point.
So
how
maybe
ironic they pop it themselves.
Yeah, well, it's not news. Look at 3.5.
Well, yeah. Well,
they rushed in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just to outrage people. If you had those 70 books or whatever,
yeah,
I mean.
They cut their own throat. And people were like, I will not go to 4th edition. And here comes 3.5. But if it wasn't for the OGL, there wouldn't have been a Pathfinder.
So how much of the bubble does this pop? How much of a decline in RPGs do we see that this whole fad is gone?
Yeah. And you're about to see a glut of new role-playing systems. How interested are you in like Cobalt Press is talking about their Black Flag is the code name for their role-playing system. I think Paizo, whatever, has already announced they're going to come out with something that's their own rule. So there's going to suddenly be, you know, who are you wanting to back? Which one are you most excited about? Are you willing to try some? No, I'll keep playing 5th. I'd be curious to know. Let us know.
Well, it's very interesting how Paizo benefited from the 3.5 misstep. Mm-hmm. So is this where 5th edition is going to hand them back the ball and go like, hey, Pathfinder 2, take off? Because Pathfinder 2 has just been languishing. It's dead on arrival.
But yeah, it's because, okay, let's say this. There are people that weren't, old schoolers that were first and second edition game players that never left. They saw 3.5 and went, ugh, no, it's way too complicated, way too much math. You're moving away from the story elements into all this crunchy stuff. No. 4th edition came out and they're like, ugh, this is like a video game. There were grognards that had never budged from first, second edition that when 5th edition came out, they said, this feels more like home. Because 5th edition, initially when it came out, was definitely less complicated than 3.5. It wasn't. 4th edition was just no. So that's what, like North Texas, I was kind of surprised when they went, yep, we're going to allow 5th edition at our con, because it's definitely a new school game, but it's got a certain feel that's a little old school. And so that's where Pathfinder 2e, I think they were like, well, we want the people that love crunch. So if you like Pathfinder 1, wait till you see Pathfinder 2. It's crunchy AF. And it's like, no way. So hopefully they'll come out with something that's way less crunchy if they want to maybe try to scoop up the disenfranchised D&Ders, because I can't see anybody that like, I love 5th, but screw WotC going to Pathfinder 2. I mean, I could be wrong, but you know, it's a 600 and some odd page book, just the core book.
Maybe the moment is right for Savage Worlds.
Yeah, I would love that. Savage Worlds is nice because it's not really crunchy, but you can layer in the crunch for those who like crunch. It's a nice middle ground. It's very pulpy is the good word. I've heard a lot about it. It's very high flying, Indiana Jones and you know, Star Wars. I mean, you know, that's evocative of like the high flying. I'm gonna swing over on a whip, you know, or I'm gonna jump, you know, out of the sand buggy and you know whatever. I mean, it's and you can use it. There's so many splat books that are official and even unofficial stuff that you can play a lot of the games that are out there right now. You know, so once I didn't turn my volume down.
Oh my!
That's a first, but nobody's calling me.
Nobody's calling me. Could be WotC. They could be listening to this right now.
Well, I'm laughing. Normally, it's like one or both of the Garys blow me up. Like, are you podcasting? Well, I was trying.
You know I am.
Yeah, but it's too funny. Is it Thursday? You know.
Okay, like we said last night, it's about time to wrap this thing up because we're about to hit the hour 39 is where we're at right now.
And then by all means, let's pack this in. But I'd love to hear what y'all think about it. Sound off on Facebook, or does Podbean have a little forum where people can comment?
It's safer to put it on Facebook.
Put it on Facebook. Send us a Gmail or whatever.
Were you thinking about moving to 1D&D? Has this changed your mind about 1D&D? What is your alternative?
Are you even more excited about 1D&D?
This really got me going. These guys are cutthroat now. Now I know they mean business.
Yeah.
All right.
But we've been talking about this for a while now.
Yeah, we were early adopters to screwing Hasbro.
Yeah. WotC, bro.
You see that clock on the wall?
Yeah.
It says we're all out of hit points.
Ooh,